Hi, I'm Dave Snowden. I'm a professor and I am Director of the Centre for Applied Complexity at Bangor University in Wales, and I'm also Chief Scientific Officer of Cognitive Edge. I think a lot of us are disappointed there wasn't greater integration, that there's increasing violence, that the poverty issues haven't been addressed. And I think part of the problem there is not to make the sort of fairly drastic early interventions that you can see a country like Singapore made, to actually create physical infrastructure in which the different races are integrated on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's one of the failures, if you want my opinion, of what happened in South Africa. But at the same time, there's hopefulness, there's cheerfulness, there's a future. You're still a very strong economic force in South Africa. But I feel at the moment things are sort of on the edge. They could go for the better, they could go for the worse. And I lectured in Joburg the other day, I think before and after the use of tear gas. Yeah, and I think that's an issue. I think there's a level at which intolerance of change gives rise to violence. We're actually looking at some programs in South Africa about higher levels of engagement of students on a continuous basis in order to kind of like try and mitigate the impact of that and give earlier weak signals of potential dissent. So there are things we can do about that, but yes, you're right, it's an early warning sign. I think there's several things. We talk about Homo narrans with the storytelling apes, and it's not the grand stories told in workshops that matter, it's the day-to-day stories of the school gate, the water cooler. So one of the things we do is to actually map those on a continuous basis and measure the possibilities revealed. One of the key things we found in both Africa and in Latin America is that what really matters is you've got to change the way people talk about the past before a new future is possible. And the danger is people keep trying to adopt these very American styles, defining an ideal future state. So the goal is you're always saying, wouldn't it be wonderful if, and then you define this visionary state, and all you do is create the conditions for perpetual disappointment. On the other hand, if you can find ways to re-describe the past to enable a new future, then that new future will emerge in day-to-day narrative. I think there's a lot we can learn from the peace and reconciliation process. I think there's also a lot we can learn from where it didn't extend, because it didn't extend at a sufficiently micro level into communities. So you've still got a huge amount of deep resentment despite that actual process. I think South Africa has managed to maintain multiculturalism, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you haven't got tension between different groups. I would actually be much more interested to see tension based on income than tension based on race, because that is something which is resolvable, and I think that hasn't changed much in the last 10 or 15 years.